Hey everybody, Suzanne here with Caregiver Haven. So today I want to start by saying something that might sound uncomfortable. And it's that caregiving changes everything. And the life that you had before may never come back to the same way it was. So we have to find what's termed, of course, the new normal. And that doesn't mean everything's lost. What it means, and what I have seen in my experience with caregivers, is they just can't seem to get a grip because they're looking back at what was once there for them. Their dreams, their travels, the time they spent with other loved ones, and those kind of things. And they don't realize that truly inside of themselves they are grieving. They are grieving a loss that started the second they started taking care of a parent because they worried. And worry and concern is always going to pull on us. No matter what else we're doing in our lives, we've always got that worry or that concern about our senior because we love them, of course, but that's in the back of our mind. So we suffer this loss that we don't recognize. And there have been many times I've said to caregivers and their families, whether I was the physician assistant or whether I was, a patient advocate, I'd say, what are you missing? What's going on here? And they could not identify it. So we're going to talk about these things and see where the loss is and how to get back to a place that's going to be normal for you, where you're going to be able to do all the things you want to do and still hold on to those things while caregiving. That's what's most important. So today, let's talk about the hidden grief behind caregiving and why it matters. And then we'll understand that it's just an ambiguous loss. We can't really put our finger on it. That's what I'm saying when I ask people, what is it you're missing? And they just they couldn't figure it out. And then we're going to shift from chasing your old life to creating a very livable one, a one that's exciting for you. It's a shift in mindset, and we'll talk about that. And then to rebuild your identity without the guilt or perfection. Many of our caregivers, in my experience, have wanted to do the best job for their loved one. We all do. But we understand that because the parent or the spouse is constantly aging, they're changing. And what worked today is not going to work next week. So there is no perfection in this process. You just have to keep readjusting the new way of living that your senior is giving you. And then we're going to learn some grounded self care that fits real life and what you can do. So, naming that grief. Caregiving brings invisible grief. Think about it. Think about, what are you really missing here? What are your losses that you're feeling? Write them down, because once you put them on paper, you're going to be able to identify them. And it's just not the fear of losing your loved one, it's the slow, steady loss of your routines, your freedom, your relationships, and even your sense of self. It's watching someone you love change and realizing things will never go back to how they were. And it happens without a funeral, without support, even without recognition. It's a kind of loss we call the ambiguous loss, when something or someone is still here, but not in the way they used to be. Their relationship has changed with you, where they were the vibrant, loving husband or wife that did everything. All of a sudden, you've taken on the role as the caregiver, and you're doing things for them, and you're not getting any reciprocity. They're not giving you any more of the feedback of the love that they once had for you. They can't show it anymore. And you feel like this relationship is now one-sided. That grief is real. It's valid and it's heavy. And naming it is the first step to lightening your load. So sit down for a few minutes and write this out. What are you missing? What do you yearn for that you don't have anymore? Identifying these losses as the beginning of the healing. And then what you might be mourning that you haven't named. Most caregivers can't put it into words. They know something's missing. Is it the missing being alone? Is it the freedom to travel? Is it a full night's sleep? Is it the ability to plan ahead? Maybe with holidays and things like that, you don't know how the loved one's going to be. Can you take them? Can't you take them? I have a whole webinar and books on that and stuff. But it's what do you just to be able to plan and not have a feeling of I just don't know where to put my next step. And you might miss how your house used to feel and your relationships with your friends and your wardrobe isn't what it used to be. You don't dress up and look pretty anymore or feel good about yourself anymore. These may all seem small on the surface, but they matter. And these losses pile up day after day, quietly wearing you down. And when we start to name these micro losses, even getting up and dressing and looking nice for the day and out of your own bathrobe, we create space to grieve them and to gently begin rebuilding something new in their place. I'm not kidding. When I mentioned this to caregivers and said, when was the last time you dressed up like you were ready to go out? And they just rolled their eyes at me. And I said, you know what? Try it. Try getting up tomorrow morning and dressing up like you look nice and see how you feel for the day. And it just takes the storms away and the windows clear and the sun comes out. It really does. All right. It is normal to miss your old life. But when you hinge on your happiness, on getting back to normal, you put your well being on pause indefinitely because you're looking into the future. There is an old expression my sister used to say to me all the time. She said, and it's not a very nice expression, but I'm going to use it here anyway. She said, if you got one foot in the future and one foot in the past, you're pissing on the present. And I've always remembered that because she's right. You got to live in the moment. What do you have right now? Life before caregiving isn't coming back in the same way, and chasing it can keep you emotionally stuck. So stop looking for joy in the now. Wait, breathe, hope, and live. That's all you can do right now. And it's not failure to admit that things have changed. It's actually the first step toward reclaiming your life in a different form, one that still includes you. So let's shift our goal from going back to moving forward. Let's figure out where you want to look in the future. So what are we aiming for? Do we have different components that we have to put all together? So instead of trying to escape caregiving, which often feels impossible, we're going to integrate it into life that still includes you. Integration means allowing your caregiving role and your personal needs to coexist rather than compete with one another. So it's not a massive change you're going to do, and it's not a long vacation or anything like that. What it actually is just weaving space in yourself for yourself within the caregiving reality world that you have right now. And this is meant for you to start looking at ways to get help, adjusting expectations, right? Or claiming 10 quiet minutes that belong only to you. You'd be shocked what 10 quiet moments can do. You'd be shocked what dressing up can do. You'd be shocked at how you might feel once you do get that cup of coffee and don't have to put it down, but actually enjoy the whole cup of coffee or tea. Let's talk about Lisa. She's 48 years old. Of course, I changed the name. And she works full time. And she cares for her mom who's living with dementia. And for a long time, she clung to the idea that life would one day go back to normal. And she thought once the crisis passed, she would have the time and the energy for her yoga class and her book club and maybe even a short vacation. And she enjoys enjoys having lunch with her friends. Well, what shifted for Lisa wasn't her circumstances. Again, it was her mindset. And she began creating micro moments to care for herself. One of the biggest things that I have seen is when you take these micro moments, they all of a sudden become macro moments for you. In other words, where Lisa took 15 minutes in her car before work with her favorite music and no one needing her, that small ritual gave her time to breathe, gave her clarity, and a sense of self back. it was just one quiet moment in the morning. Then she realized and moved on from there that maybe she could ask for help. And she started asking for help. And what she did, and what I encouraged her to do, was get back to lunch with your friends. And she said, that's a fabulous idea. And she did it. And the reason I wanted her to do it was because she didn't know that if she didn't do it, after her mom passed, it would be very hard to get back to lunch with her friends. So I wanted her to keep this, what do I want to say, this lifeline. So when her mom passed, she'd have those friends. Does that make sense? Because I've seen this happen over and over again. The caregiver is eaten up by all the time, especially in the critical last few weeks or months of their loved one's life. They're 100% glued to that. They can't even step out of the house. They don't know if their loved one's going to pass. And I said, no, you can step out of the house. If there's an emergency, they will call you. But you're going to keep that lifeline going, lunch with friends. And then when her mom passed, that lifeline was still intact. She never lost it. So many people do. So when caregiving becomes your life, it's easy to lose track of who you are outside of that role. And you begin the strong one, or the responsible sibling, or just the caregiver. You don't know who you are anymore. The parts of you that once felt vibrant, your creativity and your goals and your quirks, they're all starting to fade now. Identity loss is one of the most painful and least talked about aspects of our journey. We do this when we have kids. We're no longer just who we are. We're now a mother. When we get married, we're no longer just who we are. We become a spouse. We take on these identity roles. They're not bad, but we cannot lose our own selves in them. And here's the truth. Caregiving is something you do. It's not all of who you are. Never is. So reconnecting your identity isn't selfish. It's necessary, because when you remember who you are, you show up more fully for everyone else too. And it's in a whole nother webinars and books I do on setting boundaries, because you have to know who you are first if you're going to start setting those boundaries. So it's possible to create a life that cares for your loved one and also includes space for you. And this doesn't require dramatic changes or extra hours in the day. It starts with those small micro shifts I'm talking about. Creating a morning routine that centers around you. Saying yes, if it's putting on your makeup or putting on just the foundation and leaving the rest of the stuff off. It's maybe putting a comb through your hair. It's maybe looking, just feeling a little pretty. Or putting on your favorite outfit. Or leaving the house for a walk and taking time to do that. A life that includes you. And there's technology out there. There's lifelines, and there's all this other stuff that you can take a walk and you don't have to worry about them. There's cameras if you need to check in. In fact, it might become more aligned and more grounded and more honest than anything that came before when you start doing this. The life you wanted isn't gone. It's just evolving. And you get it to shape it. You're going to put it back the way you want it now. These pieces of the puzzle are going to be realigned to who or in what you want. So if self-care feels like another thing to check off your list, it's not going to be sustainable. Never is. You can't do it like that. It's not a to-do list. And it shouldn't feel like a burden. It should be a pause, a breath, a moment of relief. It's something you look forward to, something you want to do, something that's saying, you know what, I'm going to trust that this little moment is going to lead to better things for me in the future. And then in the next 2 weeks, you look up and go, oh my gosh, I am different. I did it. I do feel different because I did that micro thing in just a few minutes a day. The key is finding small, repeatable actions that restore your energy without requiring the time that you think you don't have. So is it a cup of coffee? Is it looking out the window? Is it a 5-minute stretch? Is it your favorite song? Turn it on and dance to it. It's not going to solve everything, but it's going to give your nervous system a signal that you're safe, you're present. And remember, you want to be present, and you're worthy of your own self-care. Extremely important. Next, you want to look at one of the most powerful forms of self-care is learning to say no, or not now, or that's not a good fit, or I have to think about it. Boundaries are not unkind. Boundaries are not harsh. They are about being honest with your capacity and protecting your limited energy. You have to protect your energy just like you would protect your body. You wouldn't want somebody attacking you. So you don't want somebody attacking your energy. And you certainly don't want somebody attacking your mental state that says you're worthy. And maybe it's telling your sibling you can't handle another opinion right now. Maybe it's asking your partner to handle dinner twice a week. Boundaries help you stay grounded instead of resentful. They're not selfish. They're how you keep showing up without falling apart. Boundaries are just amazing. And I see so many people lose their boundaries when they start caregiving. They give those up first. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. And all the counseling I've helped family caregivers do, I've said, where are your boundaries? What can you do? And a lot of folks, after and this is interesting because after they're done caregiving, they realize they've neglected their own family. And instead of the person that always enabled their family members to be independent, to be self sufficient, spouses and children alike, they all of a sudden want to enable their children because of their own guilt and grief and regret that they weren't there for them. And all of a sudden, their children and their spouse start feeling, woe is me, and want to be the enabled, if that makes sense. I've seen it over and over again. You don't want to do that. You want to keep with your boundaries. You want to set that example for your spouse and your children. If you were the person that always had boundaries before, you don't lose your boundaries here. You don't give them up, but you stick to who you are. And yes, you may feel some guilt. That's going to be normal. But guilt is just a sign that you're doing something new and you're not doing it wrong. You're just growing. So don't lose those boundaries. Start rebuilding them and putting them in place, including your senior. Your senior may not like your boundaries. But let me tell you something. I have seen seniors who absolutely respect boundaries of siblings, but not the caregiver. I'll say that again. They respect all the boundaries the siblings give, but they don't respect the boundaries from you. And I'm like, what's that all about? No, you put your boundaries in place just like everybody else, and you will be fine. I had my boundaries with my mom. My sister, she couldn't set boundaries. So I said, that's on you. That's not on me. I set the boundaries. So self-care isn't just about what you do, and it's about what you release as well. You got to let go of those heavy rocks. You got to let go of what burdens you. Take that backpack off. What are you carrying in there? As the seven successful habits, he talks about having rocks in your backpack, and that's what you're carrying around as a caregiver. You can't let go of perfection. I mean, you can let go of perfection. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to get it going and let go of needing everyone's approval. Nobody's going to ever be pleased with what you do. I'll tell you that right now. There's always somebody in the background. And if it's not, it's your own voice saying, well, you didn't do that right. And where's that coming up from? And I talk about that even in another webinar. We talk about looking in the mirror and saying, I'm great. I love what I do. And start putting you first. And let go of that inner voice. It's just not doing you any good. And then let go of comparing yourself to your siblings who aren't as involved. They come in at holidays and they tell you everything you're doing wrong because they haven't a clue. Well, let them do it. Let them say, you know what, if they can do a better job, good. Let them do it. All right, so letting go isn't giving up. It's just choosing peace over pressure. Remember that. Peace over pressure. And in that space, something softer is going to grow. And what it is it's going to be compassion, flexibility, and ease. And that's what it is to take care of somebody you love. I always had the flexibility. My mom always, even though she knew I had the boundaries, she respected them enough to say, well, can you do this? Instead of, oh, I don't know who's going to do this. I just don't. No, no. I said, Mom, you can ask. And then once I know your ask, I can tell you where I'm coming from, but I need your ask first. She knew that. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is set something down. Just let it go. Let it go. So, how do you track what actually refuels you? How do you do this? Not every act of self care is going to work for every caregiver. We know that. A cup of coffee or tea or sitting down for 5 minutes or putting a makeup on or getting on a nice dress or getting your favorite things or going golfing or taking some time out to walk or joining your friends for breakfast at a fast food place or diner or going out to, none of that. It's not going to work, for everybody. So after you figure out what works for you, that one thing that says self care, are you feeling calmer or more jittery? Does it give you clarity or just more to think about? Pay attention. What restores you? That's your personal guide. What makes you feel better? Try it. It may not make you feel better anymore. That's the change you're going to adapt to. Where you used to smell the flowers, where you used to go to the grocery store and buy a bouquet of flowers and put them on your counter, and they were precious to you, that might not work for you anymore. What you might need is a song that you used to love, an old band that you really used to enjoy. That might be it. It might be talking to a friend, and you might meet that friend, and that friend doesn't work for you anymore. Another friend does. So you have to figure out, pay attention to what works for you. Try keeping what I call a care log for 1 week. And each day, write down one thing that gave you energy or brought a moment of ease. Then do more of that thing, of course. Do more of what is working for you. So there's no formula here. It's experimenting and noticing what you need in the time you need it. Because I will tell you something, what you need right now, you might not need in a year. It might not work for you in a year. You don't know where your loved one's going to be at that point. You don't know what is going to work for you in a year. But if you do the little things every single week, week in, week out, and you track, you're going to see the changes. I use a composition notebook and I love it. Some pages just have one word on them. Some pages have a whole thing, and I'm mad and I'm writing, and my penmanship is horrible and all of that. But when I look back over what I needed, I go, where did that come from? That's who I was back then. And here is where I am today. So we're all changing. We're all growing. That's humans. Humans learn and humans grow and humans adjust. That's who we are. That's the beauty of us. So create what I call an anchor every day. I have my anchor that works for me. And I'm not going to tell you what it is because I want you to figure out your own anchor. Something you do, you return to every day, no matter what your day looks like, no matter what you don't want to do that day. It's not about productivity or outcomes. Nothing like that. It's not a goal. It's about just connection. And connection is a very fluid word. So a self anchor could be a song. It could be sitting and watching the sun come up in the morning. It could be getting up 15 minutes earlier than you do so you have time for yourself. It could be a short walk after lunch. It could be a quote. It could be a good movie. It could be one of those fantastic love movies that, make you fall in love with your spouse all over again. It could be a smile. It could be a touch. Now, when was the last time you hugged your loved one instead of serve them their food, or you hugged them? You actually gave them a big hug and you told them how much you care or love them. These aren't just routines, they're emotional ground wires. They help you feel rooted. and something bigger than the chaos. It really does bring you back to the present, brings you a moment to breathe. Anchors remind you that you still exist outside of caregiving and that you have rhythm, choice, and worth. And one tiny ritual, repeated with intention, is going to become that touchstone that steadies your whole day. And as I said, as you start these touchstones, you do it every day. It doesn't matter. You don't have to do it at 7 o'clock in the morning. You remember it at 11 o'clock, in the morning. You remember it at 7 o'clock at night. It doesn't matter. It's the touchstone. It's putting, when I first start a habit, and I want to remind myself, sometimes I have to put an item on my kitchen table. And then I have to go, I see it there, and then I have to go over and touch it. That's my touchstone. And that says, that's your habit. And I get into that habit because I remember something with it. It's got to be created, so I have to put something there. Another habit is watering my plants. When I have to water my plants and I forget to water them and they're half dead by the time I do finally give them some water, the thing is, I attach it to something. I attach it to, okay, Saturday morning, after my shower is my water my plants. I have to remember that. So I have to attach it to something to create the habit. So if your touchstone means you have to create it by relating it to something, go for it. But otherwise, do it when you remember it that day. And it's going to grow into something bigger for you. And eventually you will get to lunch with your friends. So what's your next step? So let's make it real. The one small thing you can do this week to make space for yourself. Maybe it's setting that boundary. Maybe it's creating a quiet moment in the car. Maybe it's naming something you miss and letting yourself grieve for it. Maybe it's just sitting with a quiet cup of whatever you enjoy. Just a tiny doable step. Remember, it's not a task, it's a connection. It's not a task, it's a connection. So write it down. Put it somewhere where you'll see it or attach it to an event so you remember it every day. That's your self-care assignment. Another thing you could do is you could attach it to something you do for your loved one. Let's say you take him, bring him lunch, and then after lunch is your touchstone that you do. You deserve this kind of care. And once you realize that, you're going to get stronger in your own self-care, and it's going to grow into more and more things that you look forward to, that you can't wait to do. And every time you choose yourself in this small way, you teach your brain. This is really interesting. You're going to teach your brain that you matter, that you are important here. And that's the self-care that I want you to keep all the way through this journey, so that after your loved one passes, you know that not only you did a great job, you did the best you could do, you have no regrets, but you also know that you're the same strong person you were before this journey started. The key is you're a different strong person. You're still who you are. You've just grown. So take care. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.